I'm Kevin Cirilli, and I want to thank everyone at the Action for Impact Summit and Forum for having me today to moderate an important conversation with a true business leader and someone who has really lived the mission of the summit through action, through impact, through his leadership of United Airlines. And that, of course, is my esteemed guest, as well as author of the book Turnaround Time: Uniting an Airline and its Employees in the Friendly Skies, Oscar Munoz. And Oscar, thank you so much for joining me. Congratulations on your CNBC contributorship, I heard, as well. And let me ask you this, just how did you become a CEO? Because your journey from growing up in Mexico and an immigrant in the United States, it is just, it's such a massive success story. So before we dive into all the important issues, just tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and to the audience, the esteemed audience. Congratulations on all your personal successes. And again, your question's a broad one, but as I reflect on it, it's probably partly why I wrote the book to some degree. But a lot of it has been the help of others and the guidance and my own ability to know who I am and put myself in situations where I know I can succeed. But by and large, I live a life of gratitude because there's so many people along the way that dared to step in front of me and sort of redirect the path I was headed in a good way. But again, it was never my initiative. It was never an objective necessarily. I did a lot of the things that I talk about. And so when I speak about these topics, it is the most genuine conversation I can have because it is indeed the answer to your question. And by the way, there's peaks and pits all throughout. It's just you just can't follow a certain path, and so I've been blessed, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had, but mostly it's the help of others.
So we just heard from Secretary Yellen, who talked a lot about how when women are in the workforce and when women are in positions of leadership, that the return on investment economically is something that is so incredibly important. You have obviously built teams in which you've not only empowered your employees, but also empowered women in positions of leadership. And I'm asking, why is that so important, just from your experiences? And let's be honest, a traditionally male dominant corporate level executives, why was it so important for you to make sure that so many women were in positions of leadership?
It's important because we live in a world where everything is just so doggone divided. Everything's become political. Everybody goes to the left or the right. Everyone has this desire to be combative and not collaborative. And a lot of that stems from the environment that you sit in. If all you hear as a child or someone in school or certainly in the workplace and certainly through your media channels, if that's the constant drumbeat that you hear about this is bad or this is good or those people are bad. So you live in this constant thing. And so the importance of diversity and inclusion writ large is by its very nature of the word inclusion is to bring different thoughts into the room, yes, but then give them ample ability to express themselves and ask them and bring them out of their shells. But it also brings greater value to that person. It gives them wings, for lack of a better term, and allows them, it allows them to really become confident in themselves. And in that confidence comes value and comes greater sort of representations.
What you were describing, what I heard was both an internal company culture perspective and the impact that a diverse and empowered workforce happens. But then separately from that, also the effect that that has on the consumer. When there's a diverse workforce, that's reflected outward for the experience of the consumer in terms of someone getting on a plane, for example. So could you just elaborate a little bit more on how, for example, having 4 out of your 5 chiefs of staff be women, how that impacts just mentoring within your company, for example, but then also the experience to the flyer when you have
what a great
workforce.
question. And I'm excited, and I want to be concise in my commentary. But first of all, I know from my perspective, I over the years of what I've done, I kind of get tired of always being the exception, the only person to have done this, or the youngest person. Personal viewpoint. I want to build a world where people like myself and people like a lot of you in the audience, you're not the exception, but you're the expectation of the generation that's following you, right? It's why having a black president mattered. It's why having senior leaders who look like me, act like me, talk like me is important, because it gives people sort of that desire. But to your incredibly, I think, thoughtful and insightful question on the customer, in the industry that is an airline, it is such a critical thing. We are a distributed workforce. When you see one of our employees or two of our employees, there's no one around. We don't have large factory floors. Everything is at sort of an individual basis. When you, and this is broader than race and gender and other sort of things of inclusion, what we did at United was included the people that service you. Now, here's a different optics. From a pure gender, race, diversity perspective, if you look at the numbers for an airline, certainly ours, with 70 different countries we service, and it is mathematically, from any metric, off the charts diverse. And diverse. Is it inclusive? Now, regardless of race, color, sex, the one human dynamic is somebody gives a hoot about me and what I feel. So inclusion takes many levels. My approach to it was simply to realize that we had 84,000 people at the time, that grew significantly from that felt excluded. Frontline people that take care of you, whether it's a flight attendant or a gate agent or someone below the wing that's throwing your bags around, so to speak. They were feeling sort of not included, and they happened to be very diverse. And so as you begin to reach out to them and bring them in, my concept earlier, you bring people in the room and you give them, you ask them questions. What do you think? I will finish on a slightly different thought because of the audience. Of you're all here to learn about the power of all this, and because you're here, some of you learn more than others. I would urge you all to undertake this mission of inclusion and bringing people in. The term I would use is intentionality. Mean to do the things that you do. Don't just do them for the metrics or the optics or, gee, we signed up for this. And, what is the intention? An example, at United, we had, when I was there, 8% of our pilots were female. It's like 8%, that seems low. We were double the percentage of any airline in the world at the time. So I didn't take, oh, gee, well, listen, we're in the lead, we can stay. No, intentionality became to a program that was started just a couple of years called Aviate, where we have a new pilot training mechanism that builds the pipeline, starting really with high school and getting people that would normally not go into the field into the world of pilots, helping them along the way if they need to financially. But importantly, when we announced that program, we said 50% of the people that would be selected would be of a diverse background. And that raised quite a bit of hackles. Certainly certain, television, the world will be not safe, implying that people, women or people of color, would not be as qualified to do the sorts of things. And of course, all of that's governed by the FAA. There's tests. So United doesn't make that choice as to who flies or not necessarily. But the important part, the intentionality of creating that pipeline, because we need pilots. And the pilot pool that we have now of white men from the military has begun to decrease. So you need to expand. So it was a business issue, the right thing to do, but again, intentional in its nature. So as you do your things, proof, not just promise, is an important aspect of whatever thing you undertake in your corporation.
I love it. Proof, not promise. I love it. Oscar, this has been such a great conversation. And again, thank you so much for your time. And I believe that leaders are pilots. And so you got your wings there, Oscar. And thank you to the Action for Impact Summit. And of course, my friend Gwen for having us. And thank you very, very
Thanks,
much.
everybody. Have a great conference.